Well, welcome everybody. It's 10:30. It's nightcap time on a beautiful Monday night that did not get us too wet, not too much rain, but of course a lot more is coming before this week is out here in mid-Illinois. An awful lot to talk about. We'll try and get through all the subjects as best I can. The first thing I want to mention to you, of course, tomorrow is soon to be here, is March the 10th. And March 10th, M-A-R-1-O, is Mario. So it's Mario Day. So happy Mario Day, and sorry, Luigi, I don't think yours worked on the calendar very well. So that's it. Tomorrow is Mario Day, and also a reminder that tomorrow's Tuesday. Blues are playing the New York Islanders, and they'll see Braden Shen very quickly after they traded him away. Hopefully that'll be a good night. And the Blues winners of 4 in a row will be going for number 5. They'll be back at home after that Western road trip. And boy, let's hope they can keep it going. The new young kids looked pretty good the last day or so when they played Saturday night. Coming up this weekend, a couple of big events. Of course, Stamp Out Cancer is coming up at the center over in Hillsboro. Big crowd, always getting bigger and bigger and always raising an awful lot of money. Congratulations to all the teams that work so hard. We had a lot of fun at Gudgell's Ranch doing the karaoke contest the other night. I didn't win, did not expect to, because I didn't have an entourage of 20 because the votes you paid for. So that was that. And I just didn't have enough money to throw it all in there. That would have been not kosher anyway. The other event that's coming up on Saturday night, if you haven't got a ticket to Stamp Out Cancer, at the Litchfield Community Center, Everett Dean Productions comes back with the Elvis, Patsy, and Loretta show. He was here with Elvis Meets the Beatles back a few months ago. It was a terrific show. Well over 200 people attended. This one may hit 300 because we've had plenty of time to talk about it, and the advanced sales have been really terrific. You can still get an advance ticket and save a little money from the door by going to the fablads.net, N-E-T, the fab, F-A-B-L-A-D-S, lads.net/tickets. And you can get them that way, Venmo or PayPal, or you can go to the community center down on South State Street and pick up the tickets there. You can buy them right there. Steve or whoever happens to be in there can help you. At the door, though, they're going to be a fair amount more money than they are in advance. It's always a good idea if you can, to buy them in advance. But Elvis, Everett Dean, and Patsy Cline and Loretta Lynn, a terrific young gal named Dawn Turlington. She does a terrific show. So we'll look forward to that. I think I'll be emceeing that show myself. So Sean's trying to make Stamp Out Cancer, and I'm doing my best to try and squeeze Frank Sinatra into an Elvis, Patsy, and Loretta show. But I won't. I won't. Oh, let's see. We have got a good group of folks. Hi, Randy. Hi, Jim. And hello to Don and Ruthie. It's nice to have you here. Don, I wanted to ask you a question. I've been watching because one of my very favorite actors, Eric Dane, passed away, as you know, from ALS. And he was in a marvelous series that was TNT produced called The Last Ship. I think it was 2012. Ran for 5 seasons. It was a terrific show. And I've been watching that. So I've been learning a lot about destroyers and submarines. And the thing that I wanted to ask you, the old Navy man that you are, is I understand a lot about it because they've been kind of teaching, but I don't know what flank speed is. So you'll have to tell me, how fast is flank speed? And is it different for a different ship, for different kinds of ships? And it's seriously, like I told you earlier, one of these days I want you to come on the show if you want to. Maybe I can get you and Gary Helfrich to come on together, and we can talk about just old things, Navy things, because I think a lot of people would be interested in knowing. It's a great organization, a great part of our national defense for sure. So those are just a couple of things that I was looking forward to touching base with you. The big subject, which I guess there are 2 or 3 here tonight, the big subject is hanging up the phone. And I don't mean the one that hung on the wall or was on the little table next to your dad's easy chair. I'm talking about hanging it up for a while, giving your cell phone a break. Hi Herb, how you doing? Great show the other night. From everything I heard, you are just packing them in everywhere you do a wrestling show. Herb Simmons there, the best promoter definitely in the Metro East, the best promoter probably in the Midwest, because he does it well and he does it right. Also, let's see, when I mentioned talking about hanging up the phone, there was a girl who wrote for the New York Times. Her name was Melissa Kirsch, and she was talking about a friend of hers whose 17-year-old was so addicted to the internet that he spent more than 6 hours a day online and more than an hour reading his email. Now, this was written she was talking about this several years ago. Here in 2026, that's not uncommon. And I'll tell you what, when I get up in the morning, the first thing I do, whether I'm up at 5:30 or 8:30, is try and go through and throw away all the emails that I'm not going to read. And just that alone takes about 10 minutes. And please unsubscribe, don't do it. And they catch you and you put in your email address once in a while and they just build up. But it takes a while. Then the ones I do want to read take a good hour and a half to 2 hours. Those are the ones that help prep the show that we do every afternoon from 1 to 5 on WSMI FM. But if you think about the time that is spent on the phone, and not only the time that's spent, but the places that time is spent, whether it's at the dinner table or whether it's trying to read a text message while you're driving down the road. And that's not legal, but people do it. And if you're in a conversation, you're at work, and people are trying to talk to you, and you're constantly hearing ding, ding, ding for text messages you're getting, it turns into a bit of a problem. Because then you say to yourself, who's running my life? So, for those of you, hello Tony, nice to see you from Dallas tonight. Thanks for joining in. And hello to the fam down there. My particular situation about the phone is simply, I feel like I need it to stay in touch and to have the stuff to talk about on the show. But not everybody has that situation. And yet I'm sure that about everybody would say, oh, I need it. I can justify every minute that I spend on the phone. I live on the phone for my show, and I can't justify every minute, so I doubt if anybody else can. The other interesting thing about it, your phone, it seems like, is your captor. I'm going to go get a pacemaker, and I won't be able to leave it at home. But there are people say, I can't leave it at home. I can't leave it at home. And then you also had when cell phones got really, really popular, and when it got to the point where everybody had one, then that's when, and not to be mean to them or anything, but I just remember hearing this. That's when the fundamentalists would say, you take that cell phone with you everywhere you go. Would you do that with your Bible? Well, No, I don't think God expects that either. But nonetheless, they would always say that because, and in one regard, I'm sure they were thinking, you're giving that cell phone far more reverence than it deserves. And that's pretty important. And today it is. But you need to put it down once in a while, and it's just pretty much that simple. Whether it's when you're in conversation with your better half, or you're trying to do work at your work, it doesn't need to be there. All right, what else? I don't know if you've noticed it or not, a lot of radio station groups have gone bankrupt. And I don't mean like just recently. This is an ongoing thing. Used to be a radio station group could be, or a media group could be 7 a.m. stations, 7 FM stations, and 7 television stations. A grand total of 21. And they could not own 2 different sets of them in the same city. Well, over the years, the FCC has changed the rules. In other words, they just let it become the wild, wild west. And that's why now you have 3 or 4 absolute mega groups. I guess 4 for sure. There may be 10 that are like 30, 40, or 50. But when I say iHeartRadio, that's a whole lot more than 50. If I say Cumulus, that's a whole lot more than 50. Same for Sinclair, which owns a lot of television stations. And there's 3 or 4 very large TV groups as well. iHeartRadio has gone bankrupt more than once. I think more than twice. And they just keep going, you know. Cumulus Radio has gone bankrupt more than once. They have hundreds of stations. iHeart, literally thousands. Odyssey owns KMOX in St. Louis. Odyssey owns some big stations in Memphis where our buddy Brad Carson works. And Odyssey owns a lot of radio stations. They just filed bankruptcy recently. And the reason they do is because, remember when your mom used to say your eyes are bigger than your stomach? I think that happens with radio station groups. And, of course, you know, Amazon doesn't buy a lot of radio. And yet, do you know what? Radio built Amazon. Because Amazon started out as a bookstore. Jeff Bezos, in his garage, put this idea together, and he started running commercials. And the Amazon radio commercials at that time said, Amazon is the biggest bookstore in the world. He would say, could you put all of Amazon's books in an airplane hangar? No. Could you put them all in a football stadium? No. Could you put them all on the moon? No. That's how big, and that's how he started making Amazon what it was. And after a while, well, you know, it was school supplies. And then it was, of all things, radios. And not TVs yet. But I mean, he was doing it, and he was spreading it out. And so, as mad as we can get at him, and as arrogant as he seems, you have to give him credit. He had an idea, and he took it, and he made $1 trillion with it. Now, that's not all. I mentioned Odyssey, and I mentioned KMOX. KMOX, the reason Odyssey, part of the reason, perhaps they're having their trouble, is at one time, KMOX was probably the biggest in terms of audience, especially at night, radio station in the United States. You could hear it all across the continental United States. On a good night, it would go over the mountains to California, but it was always there from the East Coast. Bob Costas talked about it in upstate New York, listening to KMOX and the Cardinals at night, going out to his dad's car radio. KMOX is not the station it once was. Its audience is changing. And the announcers, all the great old announcers that they had are no longer there. I mean, even Charlie Brennan retired, and he was the youngest of all of them, and he's been gone for 7, 8 years now. So we don't have the familiar faces. So the voices and the voices change constantly because they're trying to do something to capture that audience. Cardinals baseball, that gives them good numbers. Not much else. Not much else at all. But what is big in St. Louis? KC, it does pretty good. You got 70-some signals bouncing into that city. And all those stations have a slice. But KMOX doesn't have that big a one anymore. So when you think about all these stations that are going bankrupt, the reason it happens is because if every individual station is underperforming in terms of advertising income, that means they got to buck up. They've got to support that. And sometimes they just throw up their hands. I mentioned iHeart and Cumulus both, literally $1 billion. I think $2.3 billion for Cumulus. That's how much debt they want to shed. And most of it is to bank loans for buying hundreds of radio stations. I may be wrong on the figure, but I'm not wrong on the reason. TV groups, a group like Sinclair, they have 50, 60 stations. They own 2 stations in St. Louis. They own Channel 30. They own Fox 2, Channel 11, so that's 3. There's a group that owns KMOV. That, by the way, that group just filed bankruptcy recently. Their name crosses my mind, and then it just went zip like that. But the point of it is, I do, me, Levi, and Randy, Sean, all the people who work at WSMI, and this is just my plug for them. It's a family-owned station. It's 75 years old. It's never been the biggest, although it has the biggest audience in mid-Illinois by far. But it was more than the audience. It was the local people, the locally owned, locally sourced, locally advertised, and, appealing to a local audience. So we never tried to do any more than what we were. And that was the great thing about that. So that's why WSMI's never filed bankruptcy. Even if, Amazon affected us. Walmart came to town. Walmart affected us. If you think back 30 years ago to active main streets in every single town you would go through, and that was the case 30, 35 years ago, certainly in the 50s and 60s. And then you look at main streets today, unless people are extremely diligent and extremely active, main streets are pretty empty. So we've been fortunate that they're not always empty, but there are a lot of small businesses, some hobby businesses, different things. They're not the corporate stores, they're not downtown on Main Street. And look at White Oaks Mall. White Oaks Mall in Springfield, Hickory Point Mall in Decatur. Hickory Point Mall in Decatur is a Decatur Public Library and a couple of churches and maybe some hobby stores. There's hardly anything that you would call a mall store left, maybe a kiosk or two. White Oaks Mall, no Sears, no Penny's, no Macy's. Macy's closing stores right and left. Why? Well, because they can order it online just like they can with Amazon, and they find out it's a lot cheaper to ship it from a warehouse than to have that store. So that's what we're dealing with. Other interesting things, if you spend a lot of time on the internet and you don't get your news from a local station, and like some local stations, you can't even get the news, like Channel 30. There is no local news on the St. Louis ABC affiliate. They do a better job in Springfield and Decatur than they do on Channel 30 in St. Louis, because they don't try. But the thing of it is, how do you get your news? Do you get it online? Do you get it from Newsmax? Or do you get it from the one that makes you say, this is who I believe, this is who I agree with, so that's the person I'm going to watch. But I know right now, there are people who, all those people who followed Charlie Kirk, they were getting news from him. All those people who followed that guy, Dylan, who was the downfall of Bud Light, they got their news from him because that's who they were comfortable with. So how can you find the independent source that will say this is what we are? Not too long ago, a matter of days, there was a group called Macoupin County Indivisible. There's also a group called Montgomery County Indivisible. There is no way in the world that I'm going to slam either one of them. This is a right of, your own opinion. And this is a First Amendment thing. But they wrote a letter. I'm sorry, they didn't write a letter. They put a post up on Facebook. And it said, write to WSMI. Tell them that we want you to boycott WSMI because you're airing town hall news from the Salem Radio Network. It's not news, it's propaganda, it's right wing, it's not what they think. Not what they think would be the news. I have to tell you, there's a reason why we carry town hall news. And it's not because it's right wing, and it's not because WSMI is so super conservative to the right that this is what we think you should believe. That is nothing further from the truth. WSMI's history includes the greatest state radio network, news network of all time, and that was the Mutual Radio Network. And you know why Mutual was the best? They didn't mess around with TV. It was radio that was important to them. They had great people announcing for them. They had news bureaus all over the world, which is important if you're going to provide the news. And Mutual was great right up until about 1976. I was there in 1976. Maybe it went even a little beyond that. But, well, let's see. Yeah, it went through 85 when I was in Springfield. Mutual News finally was bought out by a company called Westwood One. If you ever listened to Jack Buck and Hank Stram on Monday Night Football years ago, and you listen to Monday Night Football now on the radio, because maybe you're out in your car, that's produced by Westwood One. There are a lot of concerts, a lot of different shows on different stations. They're a production company. They bought Mutual. And guess what? We went with Westwood One because they branded it as CNN Radio News. Had a few CNN people utilize their news bureaus, and all of a sudden, WSMI was a CNN Radio News affiliate. Okay, that was great. But, well, then what happened was they decided they were going to do away with CNN. Now, they had already bought the ABC radio network. That was not available to us, which was a good thing because it eventually went away. There is no ABC radio network anymore. Then, and there is no NBC radio network anymore. That had nothing to do with Westwood One. NBC just said, no more radio news. So it got to the point where there was nothing. The only thing left was Westwood One, which said, we'll still provide news for you, and we'll call it Westwood One. So that was our only option. We used Westwood One until Westwood One said, nah, unless you want to pay us all this extra money on top of our commercials that you run, you can't have it anymore. So they made it virtually impossible. Well, there is still a CBS radio network, but in what world would KMOX and WTAX north and south of us, south and north, why would they let us have it? Because it would just take a lot of their audience. Already right now, WTAX is mad at us and jealous because we have such a much bigger audience. We have a bigger audience than any radio station in Springfield. But we're not in a city of 100,000. So that doesn't bother us. We're down here. So if we're sitting and there is no opportunity for CBS radio news, the only option that we have left is Town Hall. Now, Town Hall News is part of the Salem Radio Network. Salem Radio Network, I would be the first to admit, pretty darn right-wing, pretty conservative. It was Charlie Kirk's network, in essence. He had his shows on there. But we don't carry any of those. We don't carry any of those. And the only reason, the absolutely only reason, that we carry the Town Hall News is because guess who does have reporters in news bureaus all over the world? Yeah, Town Hall News. So that's why. That's what you get. And yes, you get the commercials. You get the commercials of Don Jr. selling gold futures. You get the commercials of some of their talk show guys talking about different things, and you get all the insurance ads. But I'm telling you, that's not the news. Those are commercials that we have to run. And hey, Westwood One used to make us run commercials for condoms and birth control pills. I mean, that was a little different back then too. But you know what? People wrote letters then, and they didn't like that. But we couldn't do anything about that, and we can't do anything about this. So if you ever talk to somebody from Macoupin County Indivisible, and they say that WSMI is conservative and they don't follow what we think is right, please straighten them out, because we want them to listen. I want them to listen to me. Believe me, I want everybody within the sound of the radio to listen to me, because we all have egos. We all try and do a great job. And as I said when I responded with some of the same information I've given you, I said, just remember, I love you. Pass it on. Don't fight it. Not good. So what's next? How about that work on that farm field just east of the Litchfield water plant? And how about the fact that the fine folks in Nokomis, who have worked so hard to give that town a punch, a boost like you wouldn't believe, but they can't get a carnival for the homecoming. And that's not their fault. That's the fact that carnivals aren't making any money. Because why? Because the kids are on their phone? Well, maybe that's part of it. Maybe it's not all just the economy. It's changing ways to spend your recreational dollars. Or an incredibly high phone bill. No matter how many places tell you you can get a cheap phone. Won't be the same, will it? So, good for Nokomis for at least trying to get everything going. People like Lance Lehman and people like the mayor there, and the folks who run the coffee shops and the bars and the banks and everything, they're all working hard. Well, let's see. The farm field just east of the Litchfield water plant. If you drive out of Litchfield towards Hillsboro, or you're coming back in, the thing you see on the right in that farm field just before you get to the water plant or just past it, there's work going on. And the rumor is, and maybe it's true, it's going to be a solar farm. Maybe. I don't know. Isn't there a solar farm already on the Nokomis-Fillmore Blacktop, just out, maybe somewhere near where the Hillsborough Airport used to be. I don't know if it's big enough to be actually a solar farm, but they say, and I don't know for sure, that it's going to be a solar farm. One other thing I saw, drinking is at its lowest level among millennials and Gen Xers. Remember when there were more bars than you could walk out of in Litchfield on a Friday or Saturday night? Now there's not. I remember when it used to be so full, you could not hardly go. Elbow to elbow. Bands every night in some places. Everybody had a band on the weekend. Right now they don't. There's not that many bands. The bands that are, they have quit because the price they get is so low compared to what it used to be. It wasn't always that way. Once upon a time, there was a place called Stars. It was before that, it was Boomers. When my friend Butch Tooley and I took that over from Steve and renamed it Stars, started doing karaoke in there every night, moved the radio show from the Passport to the Stars, had bands Saturday, had the karaoke on Friday, we were on live, and then we were doing it through the week. Had so many different things we were doing that we had a great business. But, you know, times change. This was in 2000. We hadn't even hit 9/11 yet, because we opened that as Stars on September 11th, 2000. But by July the next year, we had pretty much figured out that pay a big rent and big utilities, which they were fair, but they were big. And, you know, you can't charge the same $2 for a bottle of beer, which at that time, that's what it was, that the bar that's been paid for 50 years was. So that was a tough situation. So that didn't happen. That didn't last. But it was fun while it lasted, I'll tell you that. Well, that pretty much runs us to the end. I don't know that Don answered my question about what flank speed was, but if he did, I'll put it up as a comment at the end of this. Also, again, don't forget, if you got tickets to Stamp Out Cancer, have a great night, enjoy it. And if you need tickets to go see Elvis, Patsy, and Loretta, stop in and see Steve at the Community Center in Litchfield down on South State, or you can go to thefablads.net/tickets, and you'll be able to order them there. They are cheaper in advance than they are at the door. And it's going to be a big crowd, so you want to make sure you can get them before they say, "Oop, we've hit our limit." Because 200 the last time, and I think a possibility of more this time. So thank you all for watching, everybody. It's been fun. I had no idea that I was going to ramble for 30 minutes. I thought I'd stop, but there was just enough to talk about. Oh, one final thing, and I think we probably should mention this. I'll leave you with some things. My 5 best Chuck Norris jokes. Chuck Norris can dribble a bowling ball. I don't know if you knew that. Some kids pee their name in the snow. Chuck Norris can pee his name in concrete. Chuck Norris counted to infinity twice. Chuck Norris can build a snowman out of rain. Chuck Norris can clap with one hand. And a bonus, Chuck Norris can tie his shoes with his feet. That's it for me. You're welcome to use those tomorrow at coffee somewhere. Have a great night. I love you. Don't forget to pass it on. See ya. Bye-bye.